Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and podcasts. We record an audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you miss the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along. In accordance with our group conscience of October 16, 2023, we will also be posting our podcasts on YouTube. We feel that this is an effective way to carry our message to those seeking recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. Keep going?
Keep going with our pages.
Okay, tonight's recap will start on, hold on, I got it. Recap is page 8 and ending on page 10. Our study tonight will start on page 10 and end on page 12. Are there any announcements?
Hi family, my name is Jamie. Very grateful recovered alcoholic. For those of you who are in Tennessee, on the 24th through the 26th of October, we will be having the Tennessee State Convention. So, but chances are the only one who's going to make it is Larry. But if you want more information, let me know. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. And good evening, everyone. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and my name is Trish. Welcome. My page has moved. Welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Terry. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing as to not distract yourself or others. We suggest we all use proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And a friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are focus on your breath and posture. Breathe in God and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God, let the craziness of the day drift away, and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And let's bring in those monks. And let's have our fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those who are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
Okay, let's have our secretary report. Take it away, Donald.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donald, and I am a very grateful, recovered, but not cured alcoholic, and I am your recovered alcoholic secretary. And I've asked Nancy to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Nancy.
Nancy, alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered but not cured, that presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And thank you all for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for about an hour before the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes and share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and be ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only element to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the forward to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapse, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
I think we have a few. Welcome, Sabrina.
Hi, Sabrina.
And welcome, Darnice.
Hi, Darnice. Welcome. Welcome. Okay. Are there, and then the recovered alcoholics? Woohoo. These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
I
celebrated 37 years on the 12th.
Woohoo! All right.
Wow!
Hang on there, Billy.
Congratulations.
We got to get you some cake.
37 years.
Woohoo!
And Linda,
Look
you
at
have
that.
your hand up also.
It's not this week, but it'll be on the 25th that I'll have 37 years of sobriety.
Congratulations.
That's day after
Another
tomorrow.
37. Wow.
Wow. Congratulations. Do we sing?
Now,
Okay. Where are we now, Steph? I moved it over and it moved on me, Steph. Okay. If you should require a Big Book of your own, we have large print editions available and can be sent to you via Buzzard Mail. Delivery time is questionable because it is snail mail. And please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a Big Book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. please visit our website, post it in the chat. Thank you so much, and welcome to all, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Donald.
From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 10. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 11. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Kenny will be reading that tradition for us tonight. Thanks, Kenny.
Yes, Terry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenny. I'm alcoholic. Tradition 11. A public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of radio, press, radio, and film. That's the short version. Now the long version, our relation with general public should be characterized by personal anonymity. We think AA ought to avoid sensational advertising. Our name and pictures as AA members ought not be broadcast, filmed, or publicly printed. Our public relations should be guided by the principle of attraction rather than promotion. There's never need to praise ourselves. We feel it is better to let our friends recommend us. Okay, I refer to the 12 and 12, and when I was reading in the 12 and 12, they was talking about how in the early days, people wanted to try pushing the AA name through radio, press, and film, but they didn't do it, and that the press became friendly of us because they found out that by us denying ourselves the egotism, that this was something different, and they became our main supporters in pushing Alcoholics Anonymous to the public. Also, there's some AA members that didn't agree with it, but most of them fall in line. We still have one or two that prefer to break their anonymity, but overall, we believe personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films is the way to go, and it's been working for our fellowship thus far. And our friends, we found it best to let our friends recommend to us, and so far it's been working for AA, and I guess it will continue to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. And now it's time for our weekly installment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What follows is one of the things we often hear, along with what the Big Book has to say on the subject. And one of the things we hear all the time is there are no musts in AA. Jamie, can you come in and tell us what it says on page 43 in paragraph 4, please?
Good evening, family. My name's Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic, and I'm going to read the entirety of the passage tonight. Once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against the first drink, except in a few rare cases. Neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. Thank you.
You're muted, Terry.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Okay, tonight we're going to start our recap on page 8, which will be read tonight by Darnice,
Cindy.
followed by our study portion, and that is going to be pages 10 through 11, and Larry is going to take that for us. Thank you.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion that will be read by Cindy. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Okay, basically, in English, what that means is that we're going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed our study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. And at the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, like with your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group. And Terry, do you want to give that a shot tonight?
Thank you.
Okay, and
Thanks for asking.
And how we arrived at this point. We did not just randomly open the book to page 8 and say, hey, let's read this. This is a 96-week study from beginning to end, and we start reading on the title page, through the preface, through the forwards, and each and every line all the way up through the end of page 164. And then after we do that, we also read Dr. Bob's Nightmare. We spend 4 weeks on the traditions, and then we close out our 96th week with Appendix 2, the Spiritual Awakening. And we do read that 3 times throughout the study where the asterisk tells us to go there. But we close out with that as well as our final week. This is our 5th year being a group, and it's our 4th time through the book. And when we get to the end, we cycle back and go all the way back to the beginning. And each time we go through, I'm learning something new. So I hope to see you all coming back and learning along with me.
Well done. Thank you, Trish. Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised. If you would like to be one of our answer readers, please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded, so we could put it onto our website.
Thank you, Terry. So, Cindy, could you come on in with our recap? And this is what we studied last week.
Hi, my name is Cindy, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Okay, page 8. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital, a broken man. Fear sobered me for a bit. Then came the insidious insanity of that first drink, and on Armistice Day, 1934, I was off again. Everyone became resigned to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere, or would stumble along to a miserable end. How dark it is before the dawn. In reality, that was the beginning of my last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With a certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through the night and the next day. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dare hide a full bottle of gin near the head of our bed. I would need it before daylight. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked if he might come over. He was sober. It was years since I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it that he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. I wonder how he escaped. Of course, he would have dinner, and then I could drink openly with him. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought of only recapturing the spirit of other days. There was that time we had chartered in an airplane to complete a jag. His coming was an oasis in this dreary desert of futility. The very thing, an oasis. Drinkers are like that. The door opened, and he stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? I pushed a drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had got into the fellow. He wasn't himself. Come, what's all this about? I queried. He looked straight at me. Simply but smiling, he said, I've got religion. I was aghast. So that was it? Last summer, an alcoholic, crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked, but about religion. He had that starry-eyed look. Yes, the old boy was on fire all right, but bless his heart, let him rant. Besides, my gin would last longer than his preaching. But he did no ranting. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how 2 men had appeared in court, persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and a practical program of action. That was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked. He had come to pass his experience along to me, if I cared to have it. I was shocked, but interested. Certainly I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless.
Thank you, Cindy. And Larry, come on in with this week's study.
Hey, I'm Larry. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. He talked for hours. Childhood memories rose before us. I could almost hear the sound of the preacher's voice as I sat on still Sundays, way over there on the hillside. There was that proffered, tempered pledge I never signed. My grandfather's good-natured contempt of some church folk and their doings. His insistence that the spears really had their music, but his denial of the preacher's right to tell him how he must listen, his fearlessness as he spoke of these things just before he died, these recollections welled up from the past. They made me swallow hard. That wartime day in old Winchester Cathedral came back again. I had always believed in a power greater than myself. I had often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the astronomers, even the evolutionists, suggested vast laws and forces at work. Despite contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. How could there be so much of precise and immutable law and no intelligence? I simply had to believe in a spirit of the universe who knew neither time nor limitation, but that was as far as I had gone. With ministers and the world's religions, I parted right there. When they talked of a God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction, I became irritated, and my mind snapped shut against such a theory. To Christ, I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him, his moral teaching most excellent. For myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest I disregarded. The wars which I had fought, the burnings and chicanery that religious dispute had facilitated, made me sick. I honestly doubted whether, on balance, the religions of mankind had done any good, judging from what I had, even in Europe and since. The power of God in human affairs was negligible. The brotherhood of man a grim jest. But there was a devil. He seemed the boss universal, and he certainly had me. But my friend sat before me, and he made the point blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. Society was about to lock him up. Like myself, he had admitted complete defeat. Then he had in fact been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. Had this power originated in him? Obviously it had not. There had been no more power in him than there was in me at that minute. And this was none at all. That floored me. It began to look as though religious people were right after all. Here was something at work in a human heart which had done the impossible. My ideals about miracles were drastically revised right then. Never mind the musty past. Here sat a miracle directly across the kitchen table. He shouted great tidings. I saw that my friend was much more than inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil. Despite the living example of my friend, there remained in me the vestiges of my old prejudice. The word God still aroused a certain antipathy when the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me. This feeling was intensified. I didn't like the idea. I could go for much conceptions as creator, intelligence, universal mind, or spirit of nature, but I resisted the thought of a shar of the heavens. However, loving his sway might be. I have since talked with scores of men who felt the same way. My friend suggested what then seemed a novel ideal. He said, "Why don't you choose your own conception of God?" That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Thus I was convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. As long last I saw, I felt, I believed, scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you, Cindy, both for helping us read. And now we're going to go into the question portion for our answer readers. Please speak clearly into your microphones, and we will ask the questions from our script by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff. The answers for those following along will be sentence by sentence, coming directly out of this week's study that Larry just read, beginning with the first sentence and ending with the last. And if those answering questions please lose their place, please allow me to direct them back to the correct sentence. And for our batting order tonight will be Kenny, Sheila, Jim, William, and Nancy. And if you could all go ahead and unmute, and we will get started. Kenny, with you. Back to page 10. Did Ebby have just a few words for Bill? And you're still muted, sir.
Unmute. Okay.
He talked for hours.
Thank you. And Sheila, what did Ebby's sharing do to Bill? And please read the whole paragraph.
Childhood memories rose before me. I could almost hear the sound of the preacher's voice as I sat on still Sundays, way over there on the hillside. There was that proffered temperance pledge I never signed, my grandfather's good-natured contempt of some church folk and their doings, his insistence that the spheres really had their music, but his denial of the preacher's right to tell him how he must listen, his fearlessness as he spoke of these things just before he died. These recollections welled up from the past. They made me swallow hard.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in with a comment. Notice the word denial in this paragraph and how it is used. This is the only place this word is used in the basic text. You will, however, find insanity and insidious insanity used several times.
Thank you, Terry, and she'll be coming in about 3 or 4 more times with other comments. So on to Jim. Besides Bill's childhood, what else did Ebby's talking remind Bill of?
That wartime day in Old Winchester Cathedral came back again.
Thank you. And William, what had Bill always believed? 2 sentences, please.
I always believed it in a power greater than myself. I had often pondered these things.
Thank you so much. And Nancy, was Bill an atheist? 3 sentences, please.
I was not an atheist. A few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in the cipher and the aimlessly rushes nowhere. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the astronomers, even the evolutionists, suggested vast laws and forces at work.
Thank you. And Kenny, back to you. Despite the contrary indications, what did Bill believe?
Despite the contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlie all.
Thank you. Sheila, what did he ask of himself?
How could there be so much of precise and immutable law and no intelligence?
Precisely, thank you. Jim, was Bill an agnostic? 2 sentences, please.
I simply had to believe in a spirit of the universe who knew neither time nor limitation, but that was as far as I had gone.
Thank you. William, where did Bill draw the line when it came to religions?
With ministries and world religions, I parted right there.
Thank you. Nancy, what was Bill's attitude when someone wanted to talk of God?
When they talk of a God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction, I became irritated and my mind snapped shut against such a theory.
Thank you. And Kenny, back to you. What was Bill's attitude regarding Christ?
To Christ I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him.
Thank you. And Sheila, how did he feel about Christ's teachings?
His moral teaching most excellent.
Thank you.
Okay.
And was he a follower, Jim?
For myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest I disregarded.
Thank you. And William, what made Bill skeptical?
The wars which had been fought, the burning in the Chinagar, that religious dispute that facilitated made me sick.
So, Bill was a hard-nosed agnostic.
Absolutely. And Nancy, what was Bill's attitude towards organized religions?
I honestly doubted whether, on balance, the religions of mankind have done any good.
Thank you. Kenny, back to you. Judging from what he had seen, Bill believed what?
Judging from what I had seen in Europe and since, the power of God in human affairs was negligible. The brotherhood of man, a grim jest.
Thank you. And Sheila, who did Bill believe was boss of the universe?
If there was a devil, he seemed to be the boss, universal, and he certainly had me.
Thank you. Jim, what did Ebby declare to Bill?
But my friend sat before me, and he made the point-blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself.
So true. And William, how well had Ebby's willpower served him?
His human will had failed him.
Thank you. Nancy, what hope had the doctors given Ebby?
Doctors had pronounced him incurable.
Thank you. Kenny, what was about to happen to him?
Society was about to lock him up.
And Sheila, what had they both done?
Like myself, he had admitted complete defeat.
Thank you. And Jim, what had then happened to Ebby?
Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known.
Thank you. William, had Ebby accomplished this miracle by his own willpower? 2 sentences, please.
Had this power originated in him? Obviously, it had not.
Correct. And Nancy, had Ebby shared the same level of powerlessness that Bill was experiencing?
There had been no more power in him than there was in me at that minute, and this was none at all.
Thank you. Kenny, how did that affect Bill?
That floored me.
Thank you. Sheila, what did it begin to look like to Bill? 2 sentences, please.
It began to look as though religious people were right after all. Here was something at work in a human heart which had done the impossible.
Thank you. And Jim, what was happening to Bill's ideas?
My ideas about miracles were drastically revised right then.
Thank you. And William, what did Ebby appear to be to Bill at that moment?
Never mind my musty past. He set a miracle directly across the kitchen table.
Absolutely. And Nancy, what did that tell Bill?
He shouted, "Great tidings!"
Thank you. And Kenny, what did Bill see in Ebby?
I saw that my friend was much more than inwardly reorganized.
Is Bill having a spiritual experience here?
Could be. And Sheila, did Bill see a real difference in Ebby? 2 sentences, please.
He was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil.
Absolutely. And Jim, did this miracle change Bill's idea about God?
Despite the living example of my friend, there remained in me the vestiges of my old prejudice.
Thank you. William, what word did Bill definitely dislike?
The word God still arises, certain empathy.
Thank you. And Nancy, how did the idea of a personal God affect Bill? 2 sentences, please.
When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, this feeling was intensified. I didn't like the idea.
Thank you. Kenny, did Bill continue to cling to the agnostics' views?
I could go for such conception as creative intelligence, universal mind, or spirit of nature, but I resisted the thought of a czar of the heavens, however loving his sway might be.
Thank you so much. And Sheila, as time passed, did Bill find others who shared his idea of God?
I have since talked with scores of men who felt the same way.
Thank you. Jim, when Ebby realized Bill's predicament, what did Ebby suggest to Bill? In 2 sentences, please.
My friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, "Why don't you choose your own conception of God?"
So true, thank you. And William, how did that suggestion hit Bill?
That statement hit me hard.
Thank you. And what melted Nancy?
It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived, and shivered many years.
Thank you. Kenny, Bill then stood where?
I stood in the sunlight at last.
Wonderful. And Sheila, what must we be willing to believe?
It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself.
Thank you. And Jim, what more is required to make a beginning?
Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning.
Exactly, thank you. William, when does the spiritual growth begin?
I saw that growth could start from that point.
Perfect, thank you. Nancy, what is the foundation of success in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous?
On the foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend.
Thank you.
Do you believe you have the complete willingness that is required to be successful in this program?
Good question. And Kenny, did Bill decide he would have it? 2 sentences, please.
Would I have it? Of course I would.
Thank you. Sheila, of what was Bill then convinced?
Thus was I convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want Him enough.
Thank you. And Jim, what was Bill at long last able to do?
At long last, I saw, I felt, I believed.
Thank you. And William, what fell from his eyes?
Scales of pride, prejudice fell from my eyes.
Thank you. And Nancy, you get the final question. What was he then able to see?
A new world came into view. Yes.
And the final comment for tonight, here is where Bill took step 2, as we now understand it.
Thank you. So we're now going to open up for comments and statements and sharing observations on the portion that we just read. So Jamie, come on in. You've got your hand up already.
I do. Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. So as we begin tonight's study, what we see is we see years and years, a couple of decades of Bill's life, where he is very much a hard-nosed agnostic, even though he's not atheist, but he's certainly a hard-nosed agnostic. Now, we don't know how long this conversation lasted, but as Bill tells it, they talked for several hours. We don't know if this transition was just in a matter of minutes or over the period of a couple of hours. And it really doesn't matter. But here's the really cool thing. So page 10, we see this hard-nosed agnostic. Page 11, he concedes that Christ is a great man, but he's still out there swinging out over the river on the tree branch on the rope, because he's just not sure. As we go through the process of page 11, page 11, what we see is we begin, especially after doctors pronounced him incurable, society was about to lock him up. What we begin to see is Bill starting to come to believe. Step 2. This is a very short transition. This isn't going on for days, weeks, months, years. This is all in a very short period of time in an evening. But he's still fighting it. He's still resisting it. But he's going, well, maybe, And here's a really cool thing. Bottom of 11, I saw that my friend was much more than inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped new soil. Despite the living example of my friend there, remained in me the vestiges of my old prejudice. So he's still fighting it. I always say, it's not God I'm having the fight with itself. It's within me. It's a spiritual battle. No, but I love my defects of character, and I love living by the 7 deadly sins. Why do I want to give that up? Because I take hostages, and I get my way. Really? Not really. I was a miserable person because of that. So I love this, and here's where the real transition, here again, just in a short time period, begins to take place. My friend then suggested what seemed a novel idea. He said, why don't you choose your own conception of God? That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. After this long time, since Ebby couldn't convince Bill what God looked like or what God was supposed to be, in Ebby's frustration, that's where he came up with the idea, why don't you choose your own conception? The beautiful thing about that, and the freedom and responsibility that each one of us is given when we come to Alcoholics Anonymous, to choose a power that will work for us. Yours doesn't have to look like mine, doesn't have to look like the Catholic popes, the Mormon bishop, the Baptist minister, the snake shakers. It's just got to be a power that'll work for you. I don't care what it is, as long as it'll work for you. And chances are that power is not pride and ego that is built and based in self-reliance. So, now, some important squiggly writing here. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required. I'm going to ask everybody, just for grinsies, to flip to page 568 real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 568. I got to get to it first. Just before the Herbert Spencer quote, we find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. Bill never could have written that on page 568 had he not experienced it on page 12. And it goes back to the thing that I always say. We hear all the time in the program, the how of the program, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, but that's not what the book really tells us. The book tells us what I just read. So it's not the how, it's the who. The willingness comes first, because when I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, I know absolutely nothing about being honest. But I had to become willing to become teachable by you guys in this book, to not pick up the first drink. The honesty came after I had the willingness. Then the open-mindedness. The open-mindedness to believe that my way wasn't working. I can relate to all of this. In these pages that we just read, I was in a big book study the other morning, 5:30 in the morning out of the UK. And I read this. And all of a sudden, all these years, 35 years later, these 3 things fell into place. In about 5 or 6 paragraphs, Bill goes from being a hard-nosed agnostic to the idea of coming to believe, to the idea of I do believe. Thus I was convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. At long last I saw, I felt, I believed. Scales of pride and justice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view. So here's a proposal, or a consideration as Rick would have called it. Here's a consideration. If it worked for Bill just that easily, is it possible that it would work for each and every one of us just that easily as well, as long as we stop fighting ourselves? Here again, it's not God that we're fighting. Why are we fighting ourselves? Because I fear that I'm not going to be who I am. I'm going to lose my identity if I do this. Oh, really? Maybe I come into the identity that I am destined to have. You know, folks, we go through so much of our lives being somebody else's something. Somebody else's child, somebody's parent, somebody's spouse, somebody's whatever. And that's how we define ourselves. We define ourselves by what other people think, feel, and say and do about us. I don't do that anymore. This book has taught me to not let any other human being define who I am. Instead, my God defines who I am through the work in this book. And I've gone on way too long. Thanks. I was only going to share about the three parts, the hard-nosed agnostic coming to believe and believing. But it all ties together. Thanks. Love you.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, Larry.
Hey, I'm Larry, grateful recovered alcoholic. I agree full-heartedly with what was just said. I am a living proof of it. I was that hard-nosed, always fighting myself, fought myself for almost 12 years before I finally gave in completely to everything that I needed to get completely honest. But I wanted to make the point that, you know, in this is a Bill's a 12-step of Bill, and it is Bill's in Bill's own words. And I do not believe that Bill could have been 12-step by anybody except me and Jamie was just talking, I think, the other day. You know, nobody could have 12-step Bill except for Eddie. It was their connection, their drinking connection, their drinking years that they drank together. Bill knew Epi inside and out, you know, and you know, when Bill looked across the table at him and he saw the change, and you know, Bill himself, you know, he said, had this power originated in him? Obviously not. There had been no more power in him than there was in me. Bill knew Ebby, you know. This is what made this 12-step so, you know, so amazing, was that Ebby just was the right person, and how God put this program together. And, you know, like myself, he had admitted complete defeat that was step one right there of Bill admitting defeat. Abby admitting deep defeat, and Bill admitting defeat at this point was kind of step one right in there. And and when Abby did, came to believe finally, I mean, it was just like, thus I was convinced, as God was concerned. In my words, God loved me. I was convinced that I was loved. And, in my walk in the 15 years that I've been sober, 12 of them, I thought that very thing, that God, there's no way God could love me. So I was different. Yet finally, after 12 years, I got honest. I told all. And what I found at the end of being completely honest was just that. I found God that loved me. But not only a God that loved me, but a God that I can have a relationship with. Not a Santa Claus God, but a God that talks to me, and when I am going off track, he helps put me back on track. And I can listen. I don't have to rely on my thinking anymore. I am not the one that is in control. And therefore, it's a more mature relationship that I have. Not a Santa Claus God that I had for so many years, what I call a childhood God that I asked and he answered. I asked and he answered. But now it's I ask and we talk, and he a lot of times says no. and I have to listen now. And so much better, because when I listen, my life gets better and better. That's all I got.
Thanks, Larry. Hi, Cindy.
Hello, Cindy, recovered alcoholic. I just wanted to kind of go a little further with what Jamie said. I like how it says he was starting to see a spark of hope there, where it says, I saw that growth could start from that point. So he was hopeful upon his own growth. And it says, upon a foundation of complete willingness, not, just whenever I feel horrible, just complete willingness, that I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. So then I just wanted to kind of go to refer to page 97. It says, helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. A kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Cindy. Who's next? Hi, Sheila.
Hi all. Yeah, I love when we make connections with part like Cindy just did with, what we've read. Where I've been reading the Big Book for 9 years, going to 9 years of Big Book meetings, but I love breaking this down word by word. I just realized that the paragraphs on page 11, the wars which have been fought, the burnings, and chicanery. Chicanery is trickery or deception through misleading words, use of sly talk, dishonest methods to get what you want, and his skepticism and his doubt, with all the corruption and after the war in Europe during World War II, because he fought in the war, and seeing the bombings. I grew up with a mother whose entire family was killed by Hitler in the camps, and she and her mother, brother, and father escaped. I grew up with her fear, from the effects of that. She didn't believe in God at all. I was not allowed to pray as a child. I didn't go to Sunday school. I was born on Christmas Eve. I was adopted from a Catholic Irish woman. I was a very confused child. But I had a God within me. But his skepticism. My mother had that. She didn't believe there was God after she saw the death and the destruction and what the Nazis made the Jews do. She looked out her window and she saw it in Poland, and that horror. I could understand that. It affected me deeply. And then where it said, my friends, but the beginning of his spiritual experience. My friend sat before me. He made the point-blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. He admitted complete defeat. And then it said, had this power originated in him? Obviously it had not. There was no more power in him than there was in me at that minute, and this was none at all. And that, to me, I realized on page 55, which summed up those two paragraphs, actually we were fooling ourselves. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. That in depth in our heart, fundamental idea that can be ignited with open-mindedness and love and willingness. And that it can be obscured by calamity, pomp, worship of other things. That was, chicanery and the destruction of the Lord. And for faith in a power greater than ourselves, miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives were facts as old as man himself. When it talks earlier about his skepticism, that that there actually what was his grandfather's skepticism kind of led him into being a skeptic. The music of the spheres. That was there really a God? He didn't even have to listen to people speaking of religion, and that's what he was raised with. I'm almost done. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. And that's what he saw in Abby that night. And that was his turning point. And that was my turning point also when I came into the rooms and I saw the light in people. And that very night I came in, that was my first spiritual experience. I saw that light and I felt it. I get emotional. So thanks for letting me share that connection.
Thank you, Sheila. Who's next? Hi, Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. And I like this part in the big book, because he shares his experience with God, and all his drinking and everything. Of course, he didn't believe in God, He believed in himself and his drinking, but he didn't believe in God. And for me, I wasn't an atheist or agnostic. I did believe in God because I did grow up, being introduced to God and this and that. But it was a punishing kind of God. If you do this or you do that, you're going to get punished. I didn't really understand God. I like what they say about get a God of your own understanding. I didn't know because, I was given someone else's concept of God. But coming to AA, I did get a different concept of God. And I do remember this. My sponsor told me, she asked me, do you believe in God? And I was like, oh, yeah, I do. And so she was like, so I want you to start writing, journaling. And she also told me that she wanted me to start praying to God. And I was like, I can't. And she asked me why. I said, all the things that I've done. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. I can't pray to God. And she said, yes, you can. You're forgiven. Yes, you can. She said, God gives us second and third chances. She said, but I just want you to have enough faith. And I'm glad that she did tell me that because, I did pray. And it was the beginning. I was in and out of the rooms. I didn't get it the first day. Some people get it the first day. Hallelujah to them. But I didn't. It took me a while, Some people it takes them years. It took me a couple of months, almost a year, in and out. And I was young. I didn't understand this disease. I didn't think I had a disease. But I knew that there was a problem. I knew something was going on. And after listening to other people's shares, I was like, yeah, there is a problem. I don't know what it is, but there's a problem. anything you have to control, then it is a problem. So with that sponsor telling me to pray, to get back to God, to go to God, to pray to God, to pray for me to get sober. I mean, that's how I was introduced to God all over again. And I like what it says about, God bring you to AA, and then AA brings you right back to God. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. Hi, Jimmy. Come on in. There you go.
Hi, I'm Jimmy, and I am a grateful recovered alcoholic. Can you hear me?
Yes, we gotcha.
All right. I wish I wasn't driving because I heard in the story there was a spot that said God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And I look back on, how I got to AA myself through a therapist, and how my family picked that therapist on Google. And when you're in, like, my neck of the woods, we're quite populated. And when you punch in therapist, thousands of names come up. And they picked the guy that, dated a girl from AA and was able to get me a phone number to the man who sponsors me today. And, I had a choice whether to call him or not, but I was able to get to that therapist. What's the odds of that? God was already helping me before I ever made it into the rooms, and I didn't even understand it. And I did believe in God, but I was turned off by religion or going to church was my biggest thing. And I didn't really want to have anything to do with that. When I went to my first meeting, I heard the word God a lot. So yes, that was a big problem for me. But, as I kept coming back and seeing how the men and women of the meetings, shared and how they treated me, and, things started changing. I thought, hey, people are treating me really, really nice here. And even if I do something wrong or I have I haven't learned a whole lot about this program yet, people are kind and they go out of their way to teach me something. And, sometimes you don't get that in other places. I do know it does say, in how it works, having a spiritual awakening as a result of working these steps. Now, I've seemed to have different. I've had probably several spiritual awakenings. I did surrender and did steps 2 and 3. But while I'm out here on the road, or I hear something at a meeting, or something happens, with one of my children or my grandchild, and I look, I think I have maybe more than one. I have so many things great in my life because of this program, because someone made a 12-step call on me. Someone showed me a different way of living, and that I did not have to take a first drink. And I didn't know that was possible. I really, really didn't. But it is. And, on the other ends of it, I have some things to do. Because at a meeting this morning at 1:30 in the afternoon, a man said one day a guy that had 20 years decided, he woke up and he decided he was going to drink after having 20 years. And, I'm sitting here, I have 4. And I think I can't fathom that, but I can never forget that I'm not cured. I love that saying with you guys. And because I am not cured. And that's something, that I think I could lie to myself about one day, that if you wake up. But, page 86 explains to us what we're supposed to do. And yes, I'm supposed to have a prayer life. I'm supposed to, and not a selfish prayer life, not foxhole prayers. I'm praying for my fellow people, being of service. So, I always got to be aware, and the only reason I'm aware is because of you guys. So I love this meeting, and I love you guys, and congratulations on the anniversaries.
Thanks, Jimmy. Glad you're here tonight. Hi, William.
Hi, my name is William Alcoholic. Just want to say hi to everybody. In the recap from last week, the door opened and he stood there, fresh, skinny, and glowing. And to me that was like a power greater than myself, because whenever I seen that, because I had bloodshot eyes and I didn't like looking at myself and all that other good stuff because of that. And when I saw that about the people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's what I wanted. So that power was working through the people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I grew up in a church. Oh, before that, I'm gonna say this. I knew a guy had about almost 50 years before he died. And he would always say, "I'm agnostic." But I tell you, his recovery process helped a whole lot of people to stay sober. I know one of his sponsors got 40-some years. I know some got a whole lot of time, and they worked up and they help people. So I don't so much listen to what people say no more. I watch what they do. So I learned that in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, when I was in church before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, my family, very church-going people. They had preachers. I still have preachers, deacon, and secretary. All these people working in the church during service in the church. But I just couldn't get it because of this right here that we read tonight. You know what I mean? And they say, "To Christ I conceded, to certainly a great man, not too close to follow by those who claim to him." So I see them go to church on Sunday, and I see them do things different on them other days. So for that, it sort of bothered me. Even when I was drinking, I used to be thinking about that, and I'd be take a drink, then I take a drink. I said, "I'm going to hell anyway. I might as well go out with a blaze on mine." One time I became Alcoholics Anonymous, that I was able to see no one has been able to maintain perfect adherence to the principle. And definitely, I appreciate my recovery process. Mine was slow, educated, and steady. I wish I could have did like you do Kool-Aid, some sweet Kool-Aid. Just put it on a glass of some water and shake it up and get it. I have to show up a day at a time in order for me to get it. Because alcohol I did in trauma. And that's what I say. That's one thing I learned. That whenever you look at a human being, we all look the same on the outside. 2 eyes, 2 ears, most of us anyway, 2 eyes, 2 legs. There's so many fingers and so many of these, assembling, but we don't see the trauma that's been done on the inside, So that trauma is like fingerprints, you know what I mean? And with all that too, because I thought I couldn't get it. Every time they read how it worked, I thought, because I struggled in the beginning. Every time they read how it worked, they said grave abortion, mental disorder. Could be true, but I tell you, I'm sober today, and I'm pretty happy camper, you know what I mean? I have a God of my understanding who allowed me to make mistakes, but a mistake I haven't done for the years that I've been here, I haven't seen a reason to pick up a drink. But any other mistake I had, it was a lesson or a blessing, to help me to continue to grow and continue to build that trust in a higher power that I understand today. And I call it God. I don't say she or he, I say God. So thank you so much.
Thank you, William. Who is next? Okay, I will go ahead and jump in. I'm Trish and I'm an alcoholic. And, I had admitted complete defeat many times. And then I wasn't sure. And then I admitted complete defeat. And then I wasn't sure. And I played that seesaw for a while. And I realized that wasn't going to get me anywhere. That was not going to get me sober. That was not going to keep me sober once I got in here, unless I was absolutely sure and absolutely willing to do what those who came before me did. And what those who came before me did was exactly what my friend did when she met with me and talked to me for hours and hours and hours over a several month period, sharing her story, sharing what happened, sharing what the program did for her, to the point that I was willing, when I became ready, to call her and say, hey, take me to a meeting. And the realization that God had done for her what she couldn't do for herself, because her human will had failed. And I had to come to that realization myself. No matter how much I wanted to fix it, do it, clean up the mess, whatever it was, I couldn't do it. I had to have some sort of God. And I didn't want one, because I grew up with a God. I didn't like the God I grew up with. And I never knew that there was a possibility until reading this book, when Abby suggested, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And the first time I heard that, I got chills. Because it was the realization that I don't have to believe in the God that I grew up with, the God I was told that I was going to grow up with and live with for my life. I couldn't do that. That God could not get me sober, could not keep me sober. I had to find a God that would work for me. I had to find a God of my own choosing, of my own conception. And when I did that, I was able to get that God personal to me and build a relationship with that God. You know, when I look back over my life of my drinking, my pre-drinking, my after drinking when I'm still riding that seesaw, I could look back at my life and see all the highlights light up like a path. And know without a doubt that God was still watching over me and directing me and keeping me safe until the point that I came into AA to meet you people and then to meet that God of my understanding. And without that, I don't know that I would have the relationship with God that I have today, because I had to recognize when I was talking with somebody else, not that long ago, maybe about a year or so ago, as I look back over my life, there was no doubt that God was guiding me. So obviously my will even at that point wasn't working. But God, I forgot to set the timer. But, you know, God was keeping me safe until the point that I met you folks. And then you guys could introduce me to that willingness. As I learned and watched you sharing yourselves with me, I got that willingness to start being open to with you. And I had to learn that trust, because I didn't have that trust. I didn't have the ability to trust another being. I certainly wasn't going to trust God. But over time, I was able to learn how to trust somebody, how to talk to somebody, how to share myself. And slowly, by doing that with you, I was able to start doing that with God as well and get into a prayer life. And I'm going to stop there. Thanks, Terry. Come on in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Terry, recovered alcoholic, aka Pickle Chips. I've read this chapter many times. And some jumped out at me tonight, which happens often. Of course, I don't have the whole big book memorized, but I don't remember ever hearing this before. But did Bill see a real difference in Ebby? And the book says he was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil. I love that. You know, and when we read that, it just, you know, my brain just kind of went, oh, that is such a cool way to think about it. That he actually had, I just pictured this fresh soil and these roots digging deep or growing deep into the soil. And that's all of us today, now that we're recovered. And I just love that visual. And I love it when I hear something in the big book that I don't remember that it ever struck me before, like it did tonight. Um, and I also wanted to wish Billy a happy birthday. 37 years is amazing. And then we celebrate Linda next week, another 37-year-old. That's pretty amazing stuff we have here in this group. All the years of sobriety, I don't know if we've ever put it all together, how many years are here, but it's quite impressive. And we get to learn from each other, and I think that's important that we keep learning, because I know some people in the program that I think they stop learning, that they just come to meetings for social and, just the enjoyment of going to meetings. But, I think learning is so important, and growing and grasping our roots in that new soil. We got to water it, we got to tend it, and that's what we're doing right now by being in a big book study. So anyway, thanks for letting me share that.
Thanks, Terry. Come on in, Larry.
Hey, I just wanted to say, just real short, I don't see Billy, but I do want to say happy birthday if she's still here. And Linda, happy birthday. But Donald, Terry, you're doing a great job on this service. Thank you for the service that you're doing. That's all I got.
Thank you. And Terry, would you like to read our closing tonight?
I would be honored. Thank you. Okay. From page 164 of our big book. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Okay, now we're going to close with a moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers in and out of these rooms. And like I said, I've recently become aware of some alcoholics that are in these rooms that are still suffering because they're not learning, I guess. I don't know. I can't guess why they're still suffering. But I'd like to close with a moment of silence. And after that, if we could pray us out. And since we can't hold hands in person, we hold virtual hands here on the screen. I like how Georgina did it and Linda. Okay, those are some virtual hands too. So after a moment of silence, we'll close with the Lord's Prayer. Okay, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Keep coming
Good
back.
night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good
Good
night.
night, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank
Good night.
you.
To the meeting,
Good
guys
night.
and ladies.
Good
Good
night,
to see
everyone.
y'all, family.
Thank you.